Well, let's turn to London now, where Britons are still coming to terms with the news of the Queen's death. And joining me now from London is the royal editor of the Daily Mirror, Russell Myers. Russell, great to see you. Give us a sense, Russell, of the mood on the ground in London right now. Are the crowds like they were last night coming this morning?
Well, certainly the crowds were there till the early hours, and they were a steady stream of people, a very, very sombre mood, as you would imagine. But not only just in London. I think there were crowds gathering throughout the early hours at Windsor Castle, at Balmoral Castle, certainly in Edinburgh as well. This is a certain incident that has no doubt brought the country together and everyone united in their grief. And you saw people just gathering to try and get a sense of the occasion, to try and witness some form of history, but not really knowing what to feel or what to expect. And hopefully the plans over the next few days will become clear of how we can honour Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth after her unfortunate passing.
And Russell, we saw her with your new Prime Minister, Ms Truss, on just 48 hours before her passing. It did seem as though she was frail, but it's, you know, the suddenness sort of has caught a lot of people off guard.
Yes, I think you're right. The Queen had not been seen since July the 21st, when she went up to Scotland for her summer holiday. And we wouldn't necessarily expect to see her in engagements, but certainly people had been saying to me that her mobility problems had been increasing with regularity. However, she was absolutely determined that she would greet her 15th Prime Minister, Liz Truss, on Tuesday. And that day encompassed quite a broad sense of engagement. She also met the outgoing Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. She had another meeting with her outgoing Communications Secretary. And it did seem to have taken quite a lot out of her. I think we were, you know, even though she was broadly smiling when she was meeting Liz Truss, it was very noticeable, the marks on her hands, her swollen ankles. She did look quite frail, and it does seem to have taken its toll on that full day.
Now, Russell, we saw a grief-stricken Prince Harry arrive after the main family had been to Balmoral. How do you think this will go down as far as trying to mend the relationship between Prince Harry and Prince William?
Well, I think it was painfully telling, the fact that Prince Harry travelled alone. Again, my understanding is, of course, the royals were notified immediately after the Queen's doctors sensed the gravity of the situation, and certainly they scrambled as quickly as they could to get up to Balmoral. But the fact that Prince William travelled with Prince Andrew and Prince Edward and his wife Sophie tells you an awful lot, that they left Harry behind. I mean, the rift has been widely discussed over the last few months and years, and despite Harry being in the country, they did leave him behind, and he turned up about 3 hours after Prince William and that travelling party actually got to Balmoral. I mean, unfortunately, you know, I don't think it was just Prince Harry who missed the Queen's final hours. The Prime Minister's office in the UK yesterday were briefing that the Prime Minister had been told of the Queen's passing at about 4:30, which means that, again, Prince William and that travelling party didn't get to Balmoral until about 5 o'clock. So unfortunately, they would have all missed her final hours.
And what about the next steps now for the monarch and King Charles?
Well, it's a busy day. I mean, my understanding is certainly that Prince Charles and Queen Consort Camilla will be making their way from Scotland to London. There'll obviously be an audience with the Prime Minister. We will expect an address sometime this evening from the new King. And hopefully that will get a sense of, you know, his appreciation and you know, his respect for his mother, as we had a flavour of yesterday, but certainly perhaps setting out his vision of what sort of a king he will be. I think people have really warmed to Charles over the last few years. I mean, that's been a bit of a PR steer from his part, but I think we have all collectively realised that he is as dedicated to the job as his mother was, and hopefully the country will get behind him in this what must be a very, very dark hour.
Now, Russell, you would have obviously met the Queen. We've heard rollicking stories today in Australia about her sense of humour, a wonderful sense of humour. Just give us one of your favourite anecdotes or one of your favourite reflections of the Queen's long and dutiful reign.
Well, it's often, after meeting the Queen and working with her on engagements, I often find that it's the stories that people tell you about the fact of that she treated everyone the same. And I've spoken to many people over the years who have worked with her, and she always remembered people's names. She would remember their birthdays or their children's birthdays. And I think that tells you an awful lot about the person we have just lost, not only dedicated to her duty, not only dedicated to her family, but also dedicated to the people around her. And this was, an awful lot of business went behind the scenes, but her compassion was often behind the scenes as well. And her death has left an immeasurable hole in many people's hearts.
Russell Myers, thank you for joining us on this very sad day for the world. We really appreciate your time today.